Welcome to a new episode of the Electrek Podcast. And Fred Lambert, your host. And as usual, I'm joined by Seth the world traveler. It was Paris a few weeks ago, then Los Angeles, and now where are you, Seth?
I'm in Las Vegas at a friend's 50th birthday party.
Nice. What happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas, of course. I won't ask any further.
Except for the podcast.
Oh yeah, podcast is the only exception. All right, we have a big show this week. So the last 2 weeks we've been complaining that it has been slow news week and all that, and it started to pick up a little bit this week. It's not. Well, I don't think we're full throttle just yet. I think the autumn is always the fall is always a little better for that. But end of the summer was getting a little bit of interesting news here. We're gonna start with Tesla as usual, but we don't have too much to talk about Tesla this week. Then, and if you want to skip that, you know what to do. And then we jump into some Hyundai news that's going to be interesting. We are going to get a little bit more philosophical about this one, so stay tuned for that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about something that has been on everyone's mind in the industry lately, is the cheap Chinese EVs that are coming. So stay tuned for that too. But we're going to start out with Model Y, the best-selling not just electric vehicle in the world, but best-selling vehicle in the world, period, or at least it was last year. We've been talking a lot about this Juniper, this supposedly upcoming refresh of the vehicle. And there's been talk about it happening this year. Tesla was clear about that. It's not going to happen this year, but they've always been clear about this year, which suggested that it's probably going to be early next year. And now, sure enough, a new report coming from the supply chain that in China, Tesla's supply chain in China is very important. This is not just for the Chinese production, but for overall Tesla production. Suggests that the new Model Y is going to come in Q1 2025, excuse me. Q1 2024 is already gone. And there was a few specific, a lot of it was what we already knew about, like a lot of the changes to the Model 3 refresh going to carry over to the Model Y, sure enough. But there was a specific mention of producing a 7-seat version of the Model Y in Shanghai. So that would be new because there's a version of it in the US, but not in Shanghai. And apparently it's going to be for the Chinese market as well as the European market. So that's interesting. We know that Tesla was recently approved for a Model Y, a 7-seater configuration in Europe. So we speculated that it might be produced in Shanghai rather than Berlin, and that sounds like it's going to be the case. And yeah, that's about it. So quick report on the Model Y refresh, likely Q1 2025, according to this report. Tesla disclosed this week that they are now producing 8,000 NACS adapter per week at Gigafactory Nevada. They also disclosed that other manufacturers are increasing production as well. So OEMs are also ramping up suppliers. So we discussed a little bit that the opening up of the supercharger network has been slower than anticipated. Last year things started moving so fast with Ford getting the ball rolling, GM getting on board, and then basically everyone else. And before we could realize it, NACS became the standard charge connector for EVs in North America. So that's incredible news. But then a few months later, a few months into 2024, Elon fires the entire charging team, and then things started to slow down because I should mention just before that, the opening really started with onboarding Ford and then Rivian shortly after in February, March on the network. So making this adapter available for free to all Rivian and Ford EV owners, and then having them be able to use a supercharger network at will. Not at all stations, but a lot of stations were open up for it. Now, after Elon fired the entire charging team, we've heard from a lot of sources that things started getting a lot more complicated. So a lot of other automakers that had deals with Tesla to onboard their owners on the supercharger network couldn't even talk to people at Tesla, and then those that already had access, Rivian and Ford, were told that they had issues getting those adapters to their owners. Now I know that Ford even just Ford has a system, instead of giving it to all the owners, like owners have to request it. And they had like a deadline to request it. That was, I think, this month. And now they pushed it to next month, presumably because of that. But now Tesla announced that they are ramped up to 8,000 units per week, which should help, on top of other OEMs also ramping up production. So as it stands right now, Tesla has 5 automakers: Nissan, General Motors, Volvo, Polestar, and Mercedes-Benz, that are marked at coming soon as being onboarded on the Supercharger network.
Was Rivian before General Motors in accepting the NACS?
I'm pretty confident that they were not. So that's a good point, but might be mistaken. I don't remember the exact timing. It happened quickly. I want, in my mind, it was like Ford and then GM.
I just remember when GM did it, then it kind of felt like it was over.
Yeah, it felt. Yeah, so maybe we're misremembering because of that. Because when GM followed Ford, it was like, okay, if GM and Ford are both on board, then this sounds like it was happening. But I don't. Rivian was quick. It was quick,
right
around that. All right, Elon gave us a quick view of Cortex, the new supercomputer cluster at Gigafactory, Texas. So this is the controversial, big new supercomputer cluster that's supposed to be one of the biggest in the world when it's completed. Why I say it's a little bit controversial, because it kind of took over some. It was part of the decision making that led to killing the new vehicle program on the Unbox platform. So Tesla focused its construction project on this rather than construction project of the new lines for these new vehicles, and also the robotaxi, focusing on robotaxi also, I should say. So it's not the whole decision, but it was part of it, because Tesla's construction resources are somewhat limited, and Elon said focus on this thing because it was supposed to be ready earlier this year. That's another controversy where Tesla was supposed to take delivery of the NVIDIA processors that were going to be used in this facility, and then Elon had the shipment diverted to XAI, which brought them online in Memphis instead, in a makeshift cluster that was in a former Electrolux factory or something like that. And that was problematic because Elon himself admitted that these are expensive pieces of equipment that are in high demand and hard to get, and now Tesla didn't get them, and his private company got them instead. Elon's excuse was that Tesla was not ready to receive them, as evidenced by only showing us the cluster Cortex now. But the bigger question is, of course, why Tesla was not ready then and XAI was. So I'm sure that would be heavily debated in court. But for now, what we have here is that Elon accelerated this project, and he was aiming for August in our last report earlier this year about this. But we reported that a bunch of people were not inside Tesla were not as confident as he was about making it happen in August. And of course, August was also when Elon was planning to do the unveiling of the robotaxi, and the robotaxi was going to use this cluster to train its neural nets and so on. Now, Elon did post a quick, I'm not going to click on it because it's going to be super loud, but it's basically these images that you see right here is just, you see part of the cluster in a giant building. And the only thing is that I then checked with some of my sources that are familiar with this project, because we've been following this project closely. And this is not functioning just yet. It's not, it's just Tesla is not ready to fully turn the cluster on. They are still using temporary cooling unit, and the cluster won't be online until the chiller plant is completed and is connected to it. You've seen the chiller, what do you call these? You have that in power plants and like nuclear plants. It's not as big, obviously, with the chiller, but
cool.
Chimney.
Rods, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a chimney, basically. And also, Tesla is in need of more network feeders to connect the whole thing, we were told by sources familiar with the matter. Now, August is basically done. We are the 30th of August. Obviously, now the new goal is to have this up and running by October, which is the new date of the October 10 is the new date of the robotaxi unveiling. Now, some good Tesla news. We don't only report on bad Tesla news, despite what some of our reviews on Apple Podcast says. Tesla announced this week that they are now producing, or capable of producing, 700,000 Powerwalls per year, which is absolutely massive, because, to give you some context, the Powerwall was first launched in 2015, and Tesla announced last year that they installed the 500,000 Powerwalls. So in 8 years, Tesla produced. Is that 8? Yeah, 8 years. Tesla produced 500,000 Powerwalls. Now they can build that in less than a year, which is very impressive. Tesla shared a cool, quick video about how they build a Powerwall 3. So the Powerwall 3 looks to me like this is such a big ramp up in production of the Powerwall that the Powerwall 3 is probably part of that. So Tesla says one Powerwall 3 can be built every 25 seconds. So I would assume that Tesla has made the Powerwall a lot more easier to manufacture.
Yeah, that was my takeaway.
Yeah, it has to. Like if they were producing like 100 to 100,000 a year last year, and now they're producing 700, there's some big changes. So if you don't remember, the Powerwall 3 is not that much different in terms of energy capacity. In fact, it's the same 13.5 kilowatt hour, but it's has a much higher power capacity, so that enables it to have more single Powerwall home installation. So prior to Powerwall 3, most Powerwall installation had 2 Powerwalls, and people think that it's because of energy storage, but that was mostly because of power capacity, because the Powerwall 2 is limited to 5 kilowatt of power capacity. And most homes need a little bit more than that to have some decent backup. But about 13.5 kilowatt hour, that's generally good for like a day if you're careful with your energy use, which most likely you are if you're having a power outage. But the power capacity can be a little bit different. And so now that you have 10 kilowatt of power capacity with Powerwall 3, you can have like it's the equivalent of 2 basically Powerwall 2s. So good job on Tesla on that front.
You know what else is kind of nice about this is, with the virtual power plants will be much more robust, much more as more and more Powerwalls come online. They'll be able to operate in more places. They'll be able to provide more power, etc.
Yeah, the VPPs, the virtual power plants, is one of the products that Tesla I'm most hyped about. I think it could be a real game changer, especially as electricity needs continue to increase with the rapid rise of EVs and AI, that also power hungry, crypto is power hungry. All these things, increase the energy consumption, and the hope is that but we are rapidly making our energy industries sustainable with renewable energy. But there's some stability issues that we need to achieve, and distributed energy storage system like the Powerwalls are a big part of the solution. All right, last weekend Tesla brought back its referral program for Tesla vehicles in a much bigger way. So the program was killed earlier this year, and a bit frustrating for a program in the last few run at it, where there was like two part of the frustration. One part of the frustration is like the big Tesla influencers were getting most of the referrals, and Tesla, instead of addressing that at the source of the problem, they just address it at the end of it, where they're like, let's just make it not valuable for these big influencers to have a ton of referrals. Give you an example. The last referral program before this one, I had over 1 million miles of free supercharging that I was never able to use, never able to give to everyone. So that was just like useless. So there would have been a lot more efficient for other people to get those referrals, not just me, obviously. And the last referral program, it was credits. Tesla introduced those credits that you get from to apply on upgrades, on accessories, and on special thing like factory tours and things like that. But those accessories are extremely limited on what you can buy. Tesla is not like all the best stuff and everything like that. So if you have too much point, it's literally hard to spend them because of that. Now Tesla has changed things completely and addressed both sides of the issues with this new referral program. First of all, the rewards on both sides, on the new buyers and the referrers, are much better. It's $1,000 for the buyer, $500 for the referrers. And this is applicable on Tesla Store like the previous program, but also Tesla vehicles. So, it's actually useful credit this time. Now, to address the issues of Tesla influencers getting most of the referrals, Tesla has put a limit of 10 per person per year. So that will limit that a lot. So great news, I think, though obviously what it is effectively is $1,000 discounts on all new Tesla vehicles. Because to be clear, it's for new Tesla buyers that can use someone else's code, but you also have the loyalty aspect. So if you're a current Tesla owner and you're buying a new vehicle, you can use your own code to get a Tesla $1,000 off. So basically, all Tesla vehicles, except Cybertruck, I should say, because it applies on Model S, X, 3, and Y, get $1,000 discounts. So that's in the US, but it just launched yesterday in Canada. And I think it's 1,300. Since now I wanted to do something, I might as well announce it on the podcast. I was going to announce it on Twitter, but I want to do something cool for local people, for my people in Quebec. So if we have podcast followers in Quebec, with the subsidies going away by the end of the year, it's pretty good time to buy an EV right now. And the Model Y specifically, with now the dual motors being subsidized, getting the subsidies in Quebec specifically, it's basically the cheapest the Model Y has been in Quebec right now. And now with this $1,300 off on top of it, if you use your referral code, it's even cheaper than ever. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my points from the prior referral program, and the next 5 people that buy a Tesla vehicle with my referral code gets $1,300 off and a free Tesla universal wall connector, which are not offered. It used to be included in the Espresso car, but they're not anymore. So it's another $600 that you get off. So this is probably like the best deal ever that you can get a Tesla vehicle in Quebec. I'm pretty sure. So if anyone is interested, you can reach out. But I'm going to put a link to it on Twitter too, because this literally just happened like earlier today. So I finally found a way how to get rid of my Tesla credit redeem points while making everyone happy. And now there's another owner referral program, but not from Tesla, from Rivian this time, which I'm not surprised it's coming, because I'm surprised that it hasn't come sooner than that. But at the same time, Rivian was enjoying a big backlog of demand for the vehicle for a while. So I'm sure that now they obviously work to a lot of that. You can get a Rivian a lot faster these days. So now they decided to tap into their user base, which most people are very happy with the Rivian. So it makes sense to reward them for spreading the word. And so it's kind of an hybrid of all the Tesla owner referral program that I just mentioned, really. So this is pretty cool. So you get one or the other. I highly suggest the first one. Is it one or the other, or is it both? It was one or the other. Oh, yeah, no, it's a choice. Okay, one or the other. So the first one is you either get 750 points that you can redeem at the gear shop or on R1 shop. So that means that means the accessories or the vehicles, so R1S or R1T, because that's R1 shop is their online configurator basically for it. And 750 points, 1 point is equal to $1 credit. So it's $750. So it's more than Tesla, because that's on both sides. But actually, it's the same value per vehicle as Tesla, because Tesla is basically using $1,500 per vehicle sold through the referral program, $1,000 to the buyers, $500 to the referrers. Rivian is doing $750 to each, which I think is cool. And that's, I don't think there's a limit on it. I don't think there's a limit, because they said that the first 100 owners to make 25 qualifying referrals, so 25 is pretty big, will get a special Rivian Adventure weekend at some point. And so a special event next year. That'd be cool if you were there, Seth.
It would be cool.
So
click the link.
So there's no sponsor for the podcast this week. So we're sponsored by our own referral links. So if you click on this, I don't know how it works. You have to enter the postal code. One in 6 weeks, I can get a vehicle in this. So there's no So here's your code. So you can use code SET18911167 to order your R1S or R1T. And we do recommend the Rivians, especially. Seth obviously is an IP owner of an R1S, but I actually did the first drive reviews of the next generation R1S and R1T earlier this year, and I think the improvements are significant. So what else is there in this referral program? The two choice was that 750 points or 6 months of charging at the Rivian Adventure Network sites, up to a lifetime limit of 3 years. So you can, if you refer 6 people, that's the max you can get for this.
What does a lifetime limit of 3 years mean? That seems like contradictory.
So over your lifetime, you cannot add it up for more than 3 years. Yeah, I agree. It's not the best way to.
Per vehicle, maybe.
But anyway, I wouldn't recommend that. Like 750 points that you can spend in accessories if you buy the new car.
Rivian's got a lot of cool accessories too. So
yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's not you'll spend, if you start spending in the accessory shop, you probably get to $750 pretty quickly. Now, obviously,
you can buy an induction stove.
Yeah, that you cannot apply it to that purchase directly. I think that's the only difference with Tesla.
Okay.
So the buyer, the referrer can apply it to a new vehicle if you want to upgrade, for example. But once you buy it, you have to spend it on the gear shop or another vehicle, I assume, or accumulate more points because now you are an owner and you have your own referral code after that. But it's kind of a hybrid, really, of the Tesla's last few. You can see that Rivian is learning from Tesla, taking the best stuff and applying it. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right. So this has been a controversial news this week. So Hyundai has talked about their IONIQ 9, their upcoming SUVs, the 3-row SUVs, and that is going to be built at their new giant plant in Georgia. How do they call that thing? They have a gigafactory, their own name for it. The Meta Plant America, it's called. So they had an event this week to talk a bit about their strategy when it comes to electric vehicles, electrification, and how it's changing. And the controversial part is that they unveiled a plan to launch what they call an EREV with over 500 miles of range, 100 kilometers of range. Now, what's an EREV? It's an extended range electrified vehicle, also known as a PHEV.
Yeah.
So why do we need another acronym for it? And I'm kind of torn about this one because, we're not the biggest fan of plug-in hybrids at Electrek for multiple reasons, because a lot of them are, have very limited all-electric range. Sometimes, even if you have a full battery, the combustion engine motor still kicks in, and you cannot truly have an all-electric experience with the vehicle. Not all of them, but some of them. So basically, this EREV thing kind of is not exactly the same as a plug-in hybrid, which most plug-in hybrids are, somewhat ICE first and then battery, even though you can use first, you first use the battery and then ICE, but the more powerful powertrain inside the vehicle, or powertrain or energy source, is the engine that's burning gasoline at the end of the day. It's often the more powerful and the one that's going to give you most range. What I'm getting from this, from what Hyundai is communicating about this new plan for EREVs, is that the battery electric powertrain is first. It's more like the BMW i3 extended range that's now there.
Right, range extender. Yep.
Yeah. So it's a smaller generator with a smaller tank of gas that can push you further, but it's the smaller part of the two rather than PHEV, where the ICE combustion engine is the bigger part of the two. I don't think they went into that much detail in terms of so by using its existing engine and cutting battery capacity by about 30%, Hyundai expect to sell their EV similar to plug-in hybrids. Okay, so yeah, so they basically, instead of going from a gasoline vehicle and making it a plug-in hybrid, they go from a BEV and make it into a plug-in hybrid, if that makes sense. I'm not down with this, because obviously I think BEVs are the future, and BEVs are the only sustainable thing that you can make. Is at one point, like, you want to phase out completely gasoline at one point, and then PHEVs are not useful for that. But they are somewhat useful as a transitional technology. So basically, this new EREV, I'm not as mad as some people are about it, but if I'm going to rank these up, it's going to go BEVs, EREVs, PHEVs, HEVs, ICE. So that's the way I see it, basically.
Yeah. I mean, the original Chevy Volt with a V was kind of like this, because it had an electric motor that was driving the wheels, and the gas motor was always just generating electricity for the battery. So it's not a new concept. It's just kind of a rewording. Obviously, the BMW i3 with the Rex range extender engine. I agree mostly that this is a transitional step, but I think it's good that these exist in the marketplace for the people who are like, I think I want to be an EV person. I just don't know. I want to have a backup in my mind. I want to make sure that I can go to a gas station if I need to. I mean, you are lugging around a generator, basically. It would be nice also if that, like, the range extender in the BMW i3 almost felt like it could be removed. So that would be kind of a, like, you only need it for a trip or a weird thing. That would be another kind of neat option.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like most people that are on the fence right now, that would be willing to get an EREV because of that reason. You could probably convince them that they would be fine with the BEV, but for the few people that you cannot convince, I guess it's not that bad of a solution. All right, we have some EV registration numbers coming from Europe, and you have to thank the Volvo EX30 for keeping EV sales alive. Well, not alive, they've been doing okay, but they've been down last month in Europe. So new car registration grew by 0.2%, so mostly flat last month in Europe. But EV registration fell 10% year over year at 102,000 units. So that's a little bit surprising. But EV market share is still 12%, down from 13. So 12 is still higher than in the US, for example. Then some countries are doing pretty good, with Belgium being up 44%, but relatively small market. Netherlands 9%, and Netherlands already very strong on EVs. France is up 1%. So really, the whole decline in the entire continent is thanks to Germany, that was down 36%, and Germany is the biggest auto market there. Yeah. But the Volvo is making the big difference here, because they sold so far 47,000 units of the EX30, and they are up 39% in their overall sales this year in Europe, comparing Volkswagen at up 3%, Hyundai down 3%, BMW up 1%, Mercedes down 2% basically. Tesla is down almost 10% this year in Europe. So Tesla being down generally means EVs being down. So that's what we're seeing right now. But the EX30 has some momentum that is really helping. So very excited to see what it can do in the US. Obviously, in the US, it has some hurdles to get through. So now they are trying to ramp up production in Belgium, because first they were planning to send Chinese EVs, and that's not happening. So now they're going to sell them from Belgium to save the 100%.
I did talk to Volvo this week or last week, and they are really excited about the EX30 numbers in Europe. And obviously, it's going to take a while to get them here, and they're going to be coming from Belgium. And if they can sell them in Europe, would they ship them over here? And maybe they should start building them in South Carolina, all this stuff. But it's interesting because they were like, besides the Tesla Model Y, there's nothing else selling as well as the EX30 in Europe, and we like they think that it might even catch up to Model Y in terms of numbers.
Not impossible.
Not
Certainly
impossible,
not
yeah.
impossible. I wouldn't be shocked or anything on that.
It's a great car.
All right, and one of the reasons it's selling well in Europe is because these cars are seeing a lot of tariffs. These Chinese EVs that are coming every week, we highlight a few of them because they're pretty nuts. And this new one from BID, the Seal, we've seen the Seal before, but it's the new Seal 06 GT, which is basically an hatch or even an odd hatch, if you want to call it that. I don't know if I would personally call it a hot hatch, but it is it's sharp looking, but the main thing is that it's super cheap. So it's just went on sale now at the Chengdu Auto Show, 150,000 yuan. That's the equivalent of $21,150. It's very cheap. Yeah, a good price for a vehicle. Like, look, the interior is, it's sharp. You have a 10.25-inch display, a heads-up display. Though, pretty sure, I'm not sure if they mean the instrument cluster with that or if they mean an actual heads-up display. Because I don't know, they don't nearly put the inches, like the size of an actual heads-up display, right? I guess there is a dimension to a heads-up display, but in terms of specs, we're talking some single motor, 160 kilowatts, dual motor, 221 kilowatts. No, you have two options for the single motors. Yeah, okay, so yeah, you have a 160 kilowatt or 165 kilowatt single motor, and then you have dual motor version at 210 kilowatts that can do 0 to 60 in 4.9. I guess it is sort of an odd hatch, yeah.
It's a warm
73 or basically 60 kilowatt hour battery options for up to 275 miles, 605 kilometers of range, CLTC standard, to be fair. It's similar in size to the ID3 GTX, basically. That's what they're comparing it to from Volkswagen. But that car starts at $57,000. So almost 3 times the price, which is pretty nuts. So imagine if this thing came to Europe, and BYD is entering Europe, obviously, but without the tariffs, it would just take over, basically.
Right. There wouldn't even be like, I don't know. Why would you buy something that costs 3 times as much?
Yeah, exactly. Then XPeng is another one, and XPeng, we learned this week, is currently scouting in Europe for a factory to get around those tariffs. But they unveil the MONA M03 EV, which is kind of their, as the M03 name suggests, their Model 3 competitor. But unlike the Model 3, it starts at $19,000, 135,000 MRB. So it's pretty ridiculous. In terms of specs, though, I have to admit, like, it's not close to Model 3. Like, the Model 3 is definitely a little bit higher than that in terms of performance. So 0 to 100, 62 miles per hour and 7.8. You have 7.4 in a faster version a little bit. You have a 61.8 kilowatt hour and a 62.2 kilowatt hour battery pack. They don't tell you the range, but they're talking about 100 kilometers of 11.5 kilowatt hours for 100 kilometers. So over 400 kilometers of range, easy. But yeah, it's really cheap and looks sharp too, but maybe not in terms of overall performance, both acceleration and range, not quite on par with the Model 3, but for half the price, I'm sure they're going to find some buyers.
Yep.
All right, we have one more news item to discuss, and then we're going to jump into the comment section. So if you guys want to ask us questions about any of the topics we discussed today or any other topics in the EV world you want us to discuss, share our opinion on, you can put them in the comment section right now when I get to it in a few minutes. If you do enjoy the show, we would appreciate if you take just a second. It's free to do. You give us a thumbs up, like, subscribe, whatever it is on the app you're watching, because we're live everywhere, and that helps the show a ton. Free to do, takes a second. We appreciate it when you do. And if you're listening on your podcast app right now, if you can give us a 5-star review, only if you think we deserve it, of course, but if you do, that helps the show a ton, and we appreciate when you do. All right, this last news item I want to discuss is something new. I didn't know about this until I read it. I read this article from Peter. An all-electric Seaglider. So it's a plane that is also a glider and that can land on sea. Did I describe correctly a Seaglider? And it's this new company called Regent, and it's backed by Mark Cuban from Shark Tank fame and from NBA ownership fame, and also from beefing with Elon Musk fame. And Lockheed Martin, also several airlines also backing it, and including Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin, and well, that's not really an airline, but Virgin Galactic also. So yeah, this thing. Let me see. There was a range. Right now they've been approved by the U.S. Coast Guard for some flight tests, I guess. Their first vehicle that you see right now, if you're watching, it's the Viceroy. It's a 12-passenger vehicle that's capable of traveling 180 miles per hour, up to 180 miles. So basically, it can travel 180 miles over an hour. But that's the current prototype version, if I understand correctly. And they're planning the production version to have the next generation battery technology in it, and that will be able to travel over 400 nautical miles, so a big upgrade later this decade. So right now they are going to start the first test runs this year, and then next year they're going to have an upgrade with the first official flights, not test flights. I don't know difference. They currently have over 600 orders worth 9 billion. Really? Jeez, how much is this thing worth? Let me do some quick maths real quick. If you take over 900 billion, so I'm gonna say it's 9 billion just for fun, and divide that by 600. 15 million per unit.
Seems a little high.
Yeah, for a 12-passenger plane, seems a bit high. They have over 90 million from investors. All right, let's jump into the comment section.
All right. EREV is just a fancy way to call a generator. Yeah, I mean, I guess generator, PHEV, I don't know. I mean, there's a difference between a regular PHEV, which the ICE motor drives the wheels directly. Mm-hmm. So there should be a way to clarify that, but I don't know. Chinese families, small, I think maybe stereotypically, and they had the one child thing for a while, but I think, I don't know, I can't even comment on that, but not much need for a 7-seater unless grandparents are in the mix. So yeah, we knew it was Ford first. We just weren't sure if GM was after Ford or Rivian was after Ford earlier, Carl. Giant AI data wasting power is completely contrary to Tesla's mission. Maybe that's why they wiped Master Plan and Master Plan Part 2 from their blog page.
Yeah, so we didn't go into the details about that, but because at first it was not clear. But I mean, I haven't checked today, but I checked yesterday and they weren't back because it's not specifically just the master plan. It's like all the blog posts before 2019, I think. So we did write about it, and they tried to community note us saying that it was all the posts. Well, even though we did report it was all the posts, but obviously we single out the master plan because those are like important literature in the Tesla history that are now gone for the website, and they have then been back as of I checked yesterday last time. So not an ideal situation. As for the AI data center, yeah, I mean, Elon is on hot water right now in Memphis because Memphis has super bad air pollution. I know it's known as like a smaller city, but smaller city can have pretty bad air pollution too. And yeah, Memphis is amongst the worst out there. And now Elon XAI is contributing to it because that the data center that we mentioned before has been found to be using 18 gas turbines generators to power the plant right now. So yeah, it's obviously a bad look because I mean So Tesla has done that too. To be fair, they've brought up generators to supercharge, to reinforce superchargers at time and that. But now we're talking about like 100 megawatt AI data center here, so it's huge. Yeah, I mean, you could. I would have liked to. Elon said that XAI is going to be beneficial for Tesla, so it could have been beneficial. XAI could have used some of the $6 billion they raised to buy a bunch of mega packs from Tesla and a bunch of solar panels or whatever, and then they could have probably addressed that issue, but apparently not.
Nope. All right, we're going to a specific issue here. Given Vauxhall, which is the UK brand, Frontera price parity EV petrol hybrid in the UK, will other manufacturers follow suit? And then we got some answers. Mark Vauxhall, UK boss, clarified that it's some years off from profit parity, so cost parity doesn't mean that they can stay in it. So moving on, Spikes 43, Seth, have you been home enough to check out Rivian sound quality upgrade? That is a big deal. Rivian's that didn't get the Meridian sound system that was out in the very beginning have had, I would say, to be kind, lackluster sound. There's a couple people on Reddit who have figured out ways to make the built-in stereo sound better, but this last update Rivian did, the big one, really improved with the Dolby Atmos and Apple Music and stuff. So it appears that that made a big difference, and people are kind of losing their minds how good the sound sounded. Unfortunately, I haven't been home since July, so I had an opportunity to check that out. I look forward to do that, and I'm on my way home Monday. So
when I checked out the second gen R1s, they had a demo of their updated premium sound system, and it was top notch. And I'm not an audiophile, I don't detect all the nuances of the difference, but I was with Snazzy Labs, YouTuber, famous YouTuber, who's one, a Rivian owner, and two, he's an audiophile, and he was very appreciative of the sound upgrade in the second gen. So the more you know.
The more you know. Free Roadsters agree that EREV is a step backwards. Sad to see. Most people, business buying PHEVs will only do so to get the rebate on the car and will never plug them in, thus defeating the purpose.
It is a problem. It is a problem that a lot of those PHEVs are given the same incentive as the BEVs, and when you do that, even if the car shouldn't get the same incentive because it doesn't have the same impact, some people's going to abuse that. It's sure.
All right, here's a question: what happens for Robotaxi, Mars Landing, or Fred gets a free Roadster?
Okay, we rank them. What happened first?
I'm gonna go.
So Mars landing. What does that mean? We are like a human landing on Mars. All right, so a human landing on Mars, I can see that probably early next decade.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Human? I don't know. Because there's no way back. But to me, it's very, very weird.
By early next decade, like between 2030, 2035.
Maybe.
I'm sure there's going to be a few bigger missions we're going to have something in Mars, probably a bunch of more robots, and then, we would be close to humans around then, maybe, I think.
Okay.
So Robotaxi is going to happen before that. So Robotaxi, I think later this decade, I would say.
And Roadster?
Roadster.
That's a good question.
I'm going to sound biased, but I think it's Roadster, Robotaxi, Mars Landing.
I agree with you, but I don't want to be. That's going to make me sound optimistic, and I don't want to sound optimistic because I've already said goodbye to that. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Efficiency on PHEV is awful. Often you're using 300 to 500 watt hours per mile on battery along the gas tank and engine. Plus, you still have oil changes. It's a good point. You get the worst of both worlds as well as the best of both worlds. Do we have experience driving these Chinese cars? People often discuss the top line cost and showroom photos of these cars, but they Do they meet U.S. safety requirements? Are they reliable? We did drive what BYD. I feel like
And that
we
was a few
drove
years ago.
Yeah,
It was
and
2-3 years ago. They just started coming to Europe at IA. Didn't drive XPeng, but went in one. So yeah, we didn't get to drive a lot of them, to be honest. We went into saw like firsthand a bunch of them because they are often at car shows that we go to. But personally, I've not been to China to experience them on the road and all that. From what I hear from trusted sources, is that the quality level and the driving experience is sometimes better than what we know in the West, and sometimes on par or worse. So, like any other brands, like there's a spectrum. So, if you go with the higher end Chinese vehicles, like a Neo's like higher end vehicles, XPeng's higher end vehicles, BYD's higher end vehicles, you have a great driving experience, great quality, and then they have their cheaper vehicles that are going to be cheaper, so not as great of quality, obviously, but not too bad for what you get for 20,000, the equivalent of $20,000 to $30,000. So it's a bargain in some cases.
All right, moving on. Mike the Car Geek. In my humble opinion, EREVs make sense in the U.S. to transition large SUV and large pickup owners off of 12-mile-per-gallon trucks. Ram Charger, and Jeep Wagoneer 4xe will see if they buy it. It is something to consider, like those big trucks that tow large things, maybe in the winter. Can't really, you don't really want to put like a 100 kilowatt hour battery in those things, but that's kind of what they need. So at least initially, those are maybe better uses for BHEVs.
Yeah, but like speaking of that, and like the other comment before that too, about the efficiency of HEV from spikes, I one thing that I'm getting a little bit more optimistic about with EVs on that front, and having maybe a smaller, more efficient EVs, is we're starting to see the price of electricity at these fast charging stations go up pretty bad too. Like, I've seen some like 60 cents per kilowatt hour, 80 cents per kilowatt hour. It's like, well, that's gas prices at these points. So I think there's going to be an increased focus because of that, and I think this will stabilize too with time. And obviously, DC fast charging and charging at home is two completely different world in terms of actual cost. So it's not. EVs are still a lot better in terms of fuel savings. Now, that said, if that is a concern for you, you start thinking a lot more about not just going electric, but going electric with more efficient EVs that can travel more on the same battery, which is why I like the idea of Aptera, even though I know it's more of a niche vehicle. But these kinds of innovation that come from these will make it into like more and more efficient vehicle. Like we love the Mercedes Vision triple X, whatever. They have a weird name for it, but things that are hyper efficient, I think, are gonna make a comeback.
All right, we got three more comments. Martin Hughes retorts about, I think, driving price parity in the EVs in the UK may be to meet the 2024 sales mandate. So to avoid government fines, more manufacturers may follow.
To be honest, I haven't been following the UK market too much. I don't know about that. That's interesting. Maybe I should look into it.
And then Carl's saying of Mars Robotaxi Roadster that Elon Musk is going to run for office, lose, and then drop out of public life forever. Before all that, so putting a Howard Hughes spin on Elon.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for us this week, everyone. I hope you did enjoy the show. If you did, again, like, thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. Free to do. Takes a second. We appreciate when you do. And we're going to see you same time